If you've spent any time on BookTok, then you've probably come across a lot of recurring books like Fourth Wing, Akatar, Throne of Glass, Powerless, but are these books actually worth your time? I'm going to go through 10 popular books from BookTok and tell you what I liked about them, what I disliked about them, and whether they're worth your time. The first book is Fourth Wing. Fourth Wing basically follows Violet Sorrengail, who is forced into this Dragon Rider Academy despite being a lot weaker than everybody else. There is no guarantee of survival. She ends up bonding with a dragon and meets the male main character, Xaden, and that's where the story will progress with their romance. What I really liked about the book is that it's very easy to get into, especially if you're new to fantasy. The pacing is quite fast, so you can get through it quite quickly. I know that a lot of people do like the male main character Xaden, and I know that is a big reason as to why this book blew up, so yeah, I definitely liked him as well. And I feel like the book overall just has a really good balance of romance and fantasy. However, what I didn't like about the book was that the writing of the book wasn't very groundbreaking, it was very surface level. Some of the twists in the book were a little bit predictable, and the world building isn't as deep as maybe some other fantasy novels, which is okay for some people that are quite new to fantasy. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this book to someone who prefers romance over fantasy because it does place a lot of focus onto that. But yeah, personally, I would rate this book a 4-star. The next book is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. This book basically follows a teenage assassin named Selena Sardothian who fights for her freedom. This book starts as a competition, however, as the books progress, it leads towards things involving the kingdom, wars, magic. For me personally, I really liked this book, especially compared to A Court of Thorns and Roses. It does lean towards the fantasy aspect, which I really enjoy. I really like this book because the character development is crazy, honestly. As the books go on, you can really see that. And as you read, the world does get bigger, the storyline does get deeper. And another thing is that you do become emotionally attached to a lot of the characters, and you do notice as the book progresses that a lot of the side characters do play a main role in the story. There's not much that I didn't like about this series, it's just that the first two books are a little bit weaker, and so it does require some patience to get through, but I personally liked it from book one. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this book to people that like to read a longer series or really do enjoy reading epic fantasy journeys. But yeah, for me, this book is personally a 5-star read. The next book is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This book does receive a lot of love, but it also does receive a lot of hate. This book basically follows Feyre, who kills a wolf and gets taken to a magical fairy kingdom. She basically gets involved in a lot of dangerous conflict and does fight for her freedom as well as the freedom of others. One thing I did like about the series is that it is pretty bingeable. I did read the whole series in about a week, so it is easy to read. A lot of the characters are very lovable. You do grow an attachment towards them. What I didn't like is that the first book was a little bit slow for me. I didn't enjoy it as much, especially once you compare it to book 2. I'm also not the biggest fan of the writing style in this book. I feel like it is quite different to Throne of Glass, but I definitely prefer Throne of Glass more. But overall, I would definitely recommend this book to people that prefer romance over fantasy. If you do prefer fantasy, I would definitely recommend you to pick up Throne of Glass, but if you do like romance, then I would recommend A Court of Thorns and Roses. For me personally, this book is a 4-star, maybe even 3.5-star. The next book is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This book basically follows Evangeline as she makes a deal with the Prince of Hearts, which is Jax. This deal basically leads her towards a magical fairy tale where she discovers a world full of chaos. One thing I really liked about this book is the atmosphere and the very fairy tale vibe. I also really do enjoy Jax, the male main character. He's very fun and he has an addictive personality. The romance tension in the book is really incredible as well. What I didn't like about the book is that it can be confusing at times. For me, I did have to read the book 3 separate times because it was getting quite confusing. I feel like a lot of things do happen without much explanation, so that does add on to the confusion. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this book to anyone that likes that sort of whimsical fairy tale sort of vibe with romance. I feel like this is definitely that way. Overall, I would rate this book a 4.5-star. The next book is One Dark Window. This book basically follows the female main character who lives in a kingdom that is infected by dangerous magic. She basically shares her mind with this mysterious monster and becomes part of a quest to save the kingdom. I really liked the uniqueness of this book. I feel like I haven't really read anything like this before. It definitely has that dark sort of gothic atmosphere, and it's definitely different from your typical romantasy book. In my opinion, I do think that this book was a little bit confusing to read at first, and it definitely is a little more slow paced compared to books like Fourth Wing, for example. For me personally, I'm not sort of into that dark sort of gothic vibe, so this book wasn't personally for me. I didn't enjoy it that much. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this book to people that prefer fantasy over romance. But yeah, overall for me, this book was a 3-star. The next book is The Serpent and the Wings of Night. This book basically follows Araya, who is a human and is raised by a vampire king. She enters this deadly competition where only one person can win, and that's where she meets the male main character. I really liked the tournament aspect of this book. I feel like it was very exciting and it was definitely a page turner for me. I feel like this book really balanced the plot and the romance very well. I feel like it wasn't too focused on either one. And I personally do believe that this book was better written than a lot of BookTok books that I've read. However, some parts of the book I felt like the competition was very dragged. Also, I'm not a huge fan of reading books about vampires, it's just a personal preference. But yeah, I'll definitely recommend this book to anyone that does like that sort of typical romantasy vibe with a morally grey main male character. But yeah, for me personally, I would rate this book a 4-star. The next book is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This book basically follows Jude, who is a human living in a dangerous fairy world. She wants power in a society where humans are looked down upon. One aspect of this book I really liked was the political intrigue. I feel like I don't really read that much, and I feel like the tension between the characters is very well written. However, if you did read this book for the romance, I feel like BookTok portrays it very differently to how it is. I feel like the romance is not that up there compared to how people may make it seem. For me personally, this book was not my cup of tea. I didn't really enjoy it. So yeah, I would rate this book a 2.5 star. The next book is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. This book basically follows the female main character that gets pulled into a dangerous conflict, and that's where she encounters the male main character. This book was very addictive and easy for me to read. I read the whole thing in about 2 days. There's a lot of good romantic tension between the characters, and I would say that the book is quite fast-paced from the beginning. For me, I just felt like the romance really overshadowed the story and the plot of the book, which I don't really like too much. For me personally, I do like to read the more fantasy world-building aspect of the book rather than focusing on the romance. But yeah, if you do like a morally grey main male character, then I would definitely recommend this book to you. But yeah, for me personally, I would rate this book a 3.5 star. The next book is Powerless. This book follows the female main character who hides the fact that she has no powers in a kingdom with a power hierarchy, and while trying to survive, she becomes involved with a prince. I feel like this book was quite easy to binge. I did read it quite quickly. It's definitely fun and entertaining. However, I just feel like this book is really cliche. I feel like a lot of the plot twists were just very common, and it's definitely something that I feel like I've read before. I feel like for people that do like Hunger Games or Fourth Wing, I feel like this book would definitely be your vibe. But yeah, for me personally, this book was a 2-star. The last book I'm going to talk about is Lightlark by Alex Astor. This book basically follows leaders from cursed realms that compete in deadly events to break their curses. I really liked how fast-paced this book was. I feel like there was a lot of different twists, and I feel like it was generally quite easy to read. I do definitely think this book had a unique story to it, which I did enjoy reading. For me personally, I did find that the world building was a little bit underdeveloped, and some of the twists did feel a little bit cliche, or they just didn't seem to work that well. Another big thing is that I cannot read love triangles for the life of me. Overall, I would rate this book a 4-star. I hope that some of my opinions or recommendations maybe helped you decide on what you want to read next. I know that a lot of people may disagree with what I'm saying, and that's completely fair too. But yeah, I definitely hope that it helped you maybe pick up a book or decide what to read next. But yeah, that's all. Thank you for watching.